Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another edition of Jerry's Take on China, and I'm Jerry. I came to China in 2004 with many of the usual stereotypes. Chinese people are short. They aren't. Chinese people are good at maths. Some of them are. China is a poor country, and it certainly is in some places. But it's the fastest developing nation in the world. Its economy has grown to be the second largest globally, and it invests heavily in itself. I'll be honest, my first few months in China, all I wanted was to get my contract finished and get out. I had little or no confidence in communicating with people because the city I live in had so few foreigners. I was an object of curiosity, constantly stared at in what I thought was a hostile manner. I was spoken at, not to, by people who know only one English word, hello, and then giggle and run away. I was ignored in shops and restaurants, and I found out later staff were afraid of speaking with a foreigner. In short, for me, it wasn't a great experience at all. As I learnt enough Chinese to be able to order a meal, get a taxi, negotiate for a new shirt in the marketplace, I found I liked it more. The hostility I had felt became curiosity. Smiles would change the feeling of an interaction. And when my contract was ending, firstly I extended it, and then there was no more contract. I looked for a new job so I could stay in this strange new country. I'd started liking the differences. I was enjoying perhaps being white in this unusual place where I stood out as someone different. But after a few more years, I again considered leaving. The differences weren't enough to engage me anymore. Then things started to change. Now I'm an active China supporter. I like the government. I like what it does. I like how it works and how it manages the aspects of everyday life. I'm on Twitter almost every day and write extensively about how China is a good place to live. And something I hadn't really noticed until relatively recently, it's a great place for almost every Chinese person too. They not only love their country, they love their government and their leadership. So what changed? For them, President Xi. Under his leadership, this country has rocketed ahead in every single metric. Education is better, health is better, income is better, absolute poverty has been eliminated, infrastructure just keeps improving, and life in general for Chinese people is better than it was for their parents. It's also, according to everyone I ask, and I ask a lot, going to be better for their children. So what's not to like about that? For me, it was different. As a kid, I hated school. I got out as early as I could, and I went into the workplace before I was 16. When I was 28, I found I needed more qualifications if I wanted to get on. So I started learning at my own pace in Australia's Technical and Further Education System, TAFE. I found I enjoyed being able to research at my own speed, and over the years I gained quite a few qualifications. In 2015, while I was in China, I wanted to do a master's degree, and finally I found both the money and the spare time to do it. My dissertation hypothesized the difficulties in managing Chinese workplace psychology with Western management philosophy. To do this, I had to delve quite deeply into Chinese culture and compare it to my own and to those of other Western countries, because we're not all the same. This gave me a new understanding, a new level of tolerance even towards friends, family, and colleagues. I used to get angry at many things, the shouting, the queue jumping, the littering, and the spitting. As I learned more about China and the Chinese, I find many aspects of their life were different because of the conditions and the experiences they had. Slowly, those little annoying things about living in China became objects of curiosity, samples of behavior that I could study and learn from. And that process took 2 years. It didn't change the habits of the local people, but it definitely changed my perceptions of them and my relationships with them for the better. Secondly, Chinese propaganda isn't very good. Chinese news media is not very convincing when it tells the world something, so the world often dismisses it as empty words. I traveled to Ningxia, Gansu and Xinjiang in 2014, riding through those areas with a friend. We witnessed devastatingly poor people. living in caves, using donkeys for transportation, roads that were not much more than dirt tracks through the desert. In 2019, I cycled through the same region again, and the difference is amazing. There are cars, shopping centers, main roads, new apartment blocks. People are doing the same business, but because the train lines and better roads now go through the region and stop there, they've opened up previously localized economy to innovative new methods, selling high quality, freshly grown local produce, both domestically and even globally. This newfound income is obvious. China's poverty alleviation schemes, so often dismissed as rhetoric, are nothing of the sort. They're real, they're working, and they're bringing benefit to millions of people in what were formerly impoverished areas. Finally, COVID-19 has been a difficult time for everyone. Much of the Western world dismisses China for its authoritarian handling, yet it's been well proven China hasn't mishandled this at all. There were some initial issues, even allegations of a lack of transparency or notifications, but the facts speak for themselves. China discovered COVID-19, told the world in a timely manner. The world reacted in different ways. Where countries follow the same approach, they've done well and started on the recovery process. Where they ignored the lessons of China, they're still, even now, over 2 years in, fighting an increasingly difficult problem. My own personal experience of 2 weeks quarantine demonstrated to me that China has a government which cares about its people, not a government that put the economy or the political careers of bureaucrats first. During the first few days of the epidemic, China declared that all COVID treatments would be free. This ensured that people who thought they might be sick took appropriate measures and got tested early. It also ensured tracing and treatment was managed in a timely manner. Millions of government employees were seconded into different roles, some of them having no days off for weeks, but willingly giving up their time for the cause. Ordinary people, like me and my family, were given a job to do. Stay home, stay away from others, wear masks. When you do go outside, only go when it's absolutely necessary, and no more than one time in 2 days. What seemed at the time to be overkill on this turned out to be the very best approach. Even though I hated it, I stuck with the plan. We got through it, and slowly, after a month and a half, the city reopened, came back to life. The government changed its tack. It relaxed former rules, and it allowed people to do whatever they needed to do in order to make money and get the economy stimulated. Street vendors who used to be prosecuted were contacted by the police and asked to come out and sell on the street. Businesses were given tax incentives. Landlords were given rental incentives which they passed on to tenants. Employees were given vouchers or coupons with discounts to buy things, eat in different places, spend a little more money, travel if you can to keep the economy going. Most importantly, in the few cases of price gouging that I was aware of, there was always a punishment. The country looked after the people. Even now, you can still buy masks for only 3 RMB for a packet of 10. Since that time, in many different cities, they've done the same thing. Shanghai was the only city that didn't act swiftly enough, and they went through a really difficult time. 25 million people locked down for 2 months. There were complaints, there were inconveniences, there were problems with the delivery of services, there were definitely issues with people's health and safety. But there were very few people complaining about the strategy. Like me, I'd almost certainly complain. I would have issues about not being allowed out. I dislike that this happened to me, but I wouldn't question the policy because I look at Australia. Despite all its open spaces and vast lands, it has a similar population to Shanghai. Australia just experienced their 10,000th death. USA has a population of 1/3 of China and has more than 1 million dead. Try to extrapolate those numbers to the population and density of China. Many more millions would be dead. Tens of millions would have long COVID, and China would be trying to deal with this through a shattered economy. It's inconceivable. So those 3 things happened. I changed in the way I look at my surroundings, in the way I interact with the people I meet. I came to the realization that the propaganda machine of the CPC, which isn't very good at propaganda, is churning out the truth, not just empty words. Finally, I've been a witness to the flexibility and the responsive management of a crisis by the Chinese government. And this was a government that did what it did because it was the right thing to do, putting lives before the economy, and by doing so, saving both. There was no hidden agenda. All of this caused me to start to like this place a lot more. There's no towing the party line. These are just real facts. China isn't what most people think it is. It's a very different place, and if we look at it through different eyes or through different lenses, I'm sure we could find ourselves agreeing on that. There's my reasons. You may have reasons for disliking China. If you do, please feel free to leave me a comment. I will try and get back to you. If you have any questions, I will try and find you an answer. And thanks once again for watching Jerry's Take on China. See you next time.